agree with you.
Because we always get on.
Well, from this group, if this group was to survive, then let's have the conversation. Who wins from that group if they were to survive to the top of the Tourmalet? And we have to pick a different rider. You go first.
Martin. Guillaume Martin. You were going to pick him, so now you're thinking of someone else.
Nibali. Experience. I'll go with experience.
Sentimental pick.
Guillaume Martin's... No? Yeah, I think Guillaume Martin's got better form. I think he's got the legs. So experience would win from that group. Vincenzo Nibali.
Fair enough.
You know what? I don't think we're going to get the answer today because I don't think they're going to make it.
No, I don't think they're going to either. Not with the chase going on like this behind. They had 2.5 minutes, came just under 2, and now kilometres of racing because we did have that late start. And talking of sprint trains, they've been one of the best in the first week. Got it absolutely correct once, but they've always managed to have Elia Viviani in contention for the sprint wins. But now the tactic of the team has completely turned around. Alaphilippe was sort of doing his own thing early on. He was Lulu. They didn't have to do much. Now having the yellow jersey, a lot more responsibility. And they won't be thinking about further sprints at the moment. There may be one in Nîmes in a few days. And after that, there'll be one in Paris. I think we won't have many sprinters there.
No, I don't think we will.
For the sprinters, once they get to the 50-kilometre mark, to the foot of the Soleure, it's a time trial.
And Vincenzo Nibali will like this, with Maciej Mohoric trying to set the tempo for this breakaway group in the red colours of Bahrain Merida.
Still a small gap. Still a small gap. 2:47, so it was out towards 3, and it's just shrinking again at the moment.
This is Calmajan.
It's not going to be enough.
Calmajan through to the front, then his teammate to come through. That's Roman Siccar. With the yellow shoes, that's Alexis Villimos. Vincenzo work, he's not just relying on his teammate to do all the pacemaking. And for Groupama FDJ, Matthew Ladanu about to roll through to the front. Surely he's playing a slightly disruptive role, with his teammates doing all the pacemaking back in the main peloton. It does look like he's eased up ever so slightly as he rolls over the top of Vincenzo Nibali as we see the return of Rein Taramay.
Just talking about that time gap and who's chasing behind, back to 2:46. They are now at 68.5 kilometres to go in Ferrier. No disrespect, but that is guys like Marco Haller. He's a sprinter. Got himself into the group, well done. But his teammate, for example, the man on the right at the front, Zakharin, he will know with this time gap, we've got to get on with it, up the tempo.
And that's exactly why Marco Haller was in the group. So along that valley road, he could do the pacemaking. And Zakharin is riding smartly. One of the better climbers from this group. 10th this year at the Giro d'Italia. He's trying. Movistar. Good move for Movistar today as they also focus on the team's classification. Alexis Villimos just in front of him from AG2R Le Mondial. One of the strange moves yesterday in the time trial was from Villimos' teammate Romain Bardet with the bike change at the top of the climb at the 15-kilometre mark.
I thought that was a really poor decision. Not an aero bike, and it didn't have that tipped forward aerodynamic look of a time trial bike. It looked to be more like a road bike. It had been set up with time trial bars on it, and then that changed to the real aerodynamic bike. But by that stage, he'd already lost a whole lot of time by the time he got to that intermediate time check. Well, it was a bad decision. It just cost him more time.
It shows how rattled he is.
Yeah. That was grabbing at straws.
Yeah. Romain Bardet is down into 17th at 5 minutes and 46 behind. And this is a guy who 2 years ago was 3rd overall. 3 years ago, he was in 2nd place overall. He said that he's just hoping by the end of this year's Tour de form or that spirit of racing of a couple of seasons ago. As a sprinter, Robbie, what are the thoughts going through your head?
It just so happens, when I was having a look on Instagram this morning, Caleb Ewan's Instagram story. Fact of the day, I'll have to go harder than the person who will win the stage just to stay inside the time cut. Crying face emoji.
What are the emotions then of a retired sprinter who's won the green jerseys? He looks at those images.
All I can say, I actually sent him a little message.
Here's the French president, Emmanuel Macron, on the far side of the car. Christian Prudhomme nearest the picture. Here's the tour director. Here's the former lead commentator for French television, covering the Tour de France for a number of years.
Yep, Christian Prudhomme, the former journalist, and now the director of the world's biggest race.
He's been in charge since 2006. I was a little worried initially with so many stages of 200 plus kilometres that could lead to some really negative racing, but it hasn't been the case at all. The only genuinely dull day was the stage that was won by Dylan Groenewold sur Saône, which was 230 kilometres, and there was no real wind to cause any action within the peloton, and you can't have chocolates every day. And Mohoric is doing the sacrificing for Vincenzo Nibali. Guillaume Martin, the philosopher, is at the back. He did philosophy at university in Paris. Peloton still pretty much all together. Group Arma FDJ doing a lot of the pacemaking. And it's the time trial specialist now who was on the front. William Bonnet has gone from the front. It's now over to Stefan King, who is setting the pace. So far, things are working out well, but it's still very early in the stage, less than halfway through. Luke Rowe, the first of the riders from Ineos. The rider that just wiped his nose then, that's that David Goudou. 22-year-old Frenchman, brilliant climber. He'll be crucial to the prospects today of Thibaut Pinot. Average speed so far 42.5. It will be a lot slower than that by the end of the stage at the top of the Col de Tourmalet. The tour finished at the top of the Col de Tourmalet for the very first time in 1974. It was Jean-Pierre Dengoyam who went out the winner of the stage on that occasion. So let's now take a look at the historic footage from 1974 and the first ever finish at the top of the Col de Tourmalet.
This is Matteo Trentin. Also feeling the effects. I wouldn't expect him to be dropped just yet from the big group, but maybe also feeling the effects of that breakaway the other day on the way to Bagnères de Bigorre.
It went super deep, but they got the result as Simon Yates won.
Roger Kluge.
166 is Roger Kluge. The upside down 13, Marcus Burkhardt.
You'll see a lot of riders here doing the maximum to try and hang on over the top of the Soulur to get a free ride down the valley. It's a bit of descending, then a plateau, then gently downhill down the valley, and then quite a bit of flat before they hit the foot of the Tourmalet. And being such a short stage, the time cut will be short as well. If you can possibly hang on, you're much better to get over the Soulur, and then you're safe. Haven't seen many of the sprinters.
Well, one of them's in the breakaway wearing the green jersey and setting the tempo at the front. Peter Sagan again. Here he is, Sagan in third position. His former teammate Vincenzo Nibali now setting the pace. Since Ilnaz Akron got this group moving once again, they're back out to 2:30 in the right direction. Hoping to get to the top of this climb and collect maximum points. 10 points on offer at the top of this climb. And it's 20 points for the top of the Col de Tourmalet. This is Roger Kluge from Soudal Lotto. Instrument Le Buin. That was into Toulouse a couple of days ago.
Little flatter section. Just saying excuse me to his German colleague, Niels Pollitt.
And at the back, Steve Cummings still in contact. This is the leading group. Zakarin with the red helmet. Now in the blue colours for a start. Tim Wellens is now coming through, racing for that King of the Mountains classification. He leads ahead of his teammate Thomas de Gens, and Tim Wellens is one of the riders we caught up with before the stage started. Let's now have a listen to the man who wears the polka dots as the leader of the King of the Mountains classification, Tim Wellens. That was Marc Soler setting the tempo, and Andre Greipel is one of the first to pay the price.
So Movistar also getting interested in the chase. So it seems a lot of teams got their hearts set. Now, it can't be panic about Guillaume Martin, who's at over 9 minutes behind on GC. This is racing to try and put Julien Alaphilippe under pressure. Don't give him an easy ride over the first climb. Keep the pressure on. Make it come down to the pure climbers. They've got to get rid of him.
It's closing down really quickly, but everybody predicting the big decisions will be in the Alps. This is now Andre Amador at the front, followed by Marc Soler.
Maybe they want to test him, but Thomas has got a teammate up there setting tempo as well in Michał Kwiatkowski. And that's also very early. Here's Julien Alaphilippe in his wheel, Steven Kruijswijk. I think a lot of this is aimed at unseating Julien Alaphilippe.
Sunweb, they've been in plenty of breakaways throughout the race. They've had a few close calls, but now they're relying on the young 22-year-old German climber.
Ilnur Zakarin, who kicked off the hostilities within this group, he upped the tempo. Vincenzo Nibali, he's the man who started the break. He was the first real attack. Vincenzo Nibali, see who's still coming across, and always willing to push the tempo is Zakarin. He looked bad in the first week of this Tour de France. Maybe he started to come through and he's found some sort of Grand Tour second wind.
This is Roman Sicker, who is fighting his way back, looking for the wheel of Luis Leon Sanchez, who is the man next in line. This is Sanchez from Astana. From Total Direct Energy is about to be caught. They have Carlos Verona in that breakaway group, who hasn't been contributing. He's been sitting.
Still two riders. Geraint Thomas, Richie Porte making his way further up towards the front. It will not be a big group as they come over the top of the Souleur. There's a big split.
Yes. Natne Berhane, the Eritrean national champion, had an opportunity yesterday to have a good...
Riders you wouldn't expect to be in contention on this stage. Simon Clark, number 93 in the pink and purple of E. Daryl Impey. Luke Durbridge, 102. Number 92, Alberto Bettiol, the winner of the Tour of Flanders.
This group just getting itself organised. This is Michael Matthews now in the red colours, that familiar figure. Colours from De Koning Quick-Step. Next one going backwards, that's Anthony Roux, former French national champion.
Rosetto, Perez, always together.
Romain Bardet is in this group, so no, that's Michael Charel. I thought it was Bardet for a moment. That was Michael still in that.
Also overboard, Oliveira for Movistar, Magnus Cort. Plenty of drop riders to look at with on.
It is Gianni Moscon, number 5 from Ineos. There he is, Roman. 2019 has been a write-off. This is a man who's finished second overall in the Tour de France. 30-plus riders surrounding the yellow jersey, and Bardet is not amongst them.
I'll be surprised if Romain Bardet finishes this Tour de France. It's been a complete disaster. I don't know what the exact reason is, just lack of form. Is there an illness or injury that's been kept quiet and he's being found out? But this is not where he should be in this current sort of form.
Is that Simon Yates? It is Simon Yates, the winner of the stage in the Bagnères de Bigorre.
No, it wouldn't surprise me about Simon Yates, though, that he was so far back in the peloton that 80 riders have been dropped in front of him, and that is that gap, and he'll ride his way back across it.
Kwiatkowski now being dropped for Ineos, so they're starting to be strung out. Still 3 riders in that group from Jumbo. George Bennett, the Kiwi climber, and also their number 1 man, Steven Kruijswijk. And Kruijswijk is well placed overall in 3rd position. Oh, that's a horrible sign.
4 kilometres to the top of the Col de Souleur.
The individual time trial is called the Test of Truth, the Race of Truth. Maybe Adam Yates has been exposed.
As you said, nowhere to hide in the TT. When they're riding this sort of pace in the mountains, there's also nowhere to hide. You'll be quickly found out. That has happened to Romain Bardet. It is happening to others. We still have the Or category climb of the Col de Tourmalet to come. It's Amador who's turning the screws at the front along with Marc
It is
Soler.
Yates, you were right. It's Adam Yates. Mitchelton Scott, they built their tour around Adam Yates. Maybe they had an inside running. They thought Yates wasn't at his best. His brother Simon fights back. Come on, Adam. Let's get on. Even if he does, the signs are bad for the Tourmalet that awaits.
He follows the pace of his twin brother, but that gap also just opening up very slightly. He's already in this much trouble on the Souleur. That looks...
Game over.
That looks like game over for the rest of the day, you're right.
It's game over for his objectives in this race. He's been fourth in the past. He's won the white jersey as the best young rider. Mitchelton Scott now, they can't back him to try and finish high overall, surely.
They can't give up yet on this stage. They've got to hope it's just a bad moment and he'll ride his way through it and come good late in the stage. It's a very short stage and quite a quick start coming off the back of the time trial. Super intense effort. They've got to hope again. That's what it is, but it's not looking good.
This is just the start, Robbie. Another big day in the Pyrenees tomorrow. There's a really bad signs for Adam Yates. And Jack Haig has dropped back. Number 103 has dropped back to support Adam Yates. Number 56, that's Rudy Millard from Group Armour FDJ. More riders being distanced. This is the front of the race, and Vincenzo Nibali, 2.6 kilometres remaining, is up in the tempo. He's responding to the move by Tim Wellens.
Wellens, he's on the hunt for the 10 points available at the top of this Category 1 climb. Nibali, he just sees an opportunity to get rid of a few more and go on the hunt for a stage win. And trying to herd one of the spectators out of the way as the peloton come. Good work from the spectators.
The spectators were good yesterday with Wout van Aert, with the cow on the side of the road. Even better today. It was impressive.
Sorry, Matt, I had to milk it while I had the opportunity.
Boom, boom. Dad jokes right at the fore. Wellens at the front, followed by Nibali. They're only 1:16 ahead of the closing peloton with the yellow jersey still there. Julian Alaphilippe. Zakarin now responds. He is the next to go.
Zakarin really has been the aggressor since they got onto the Col de Souleur, and he is looking like a first week in this Tour de France. The Russian, he's going across straight past the Total Direct Energy rider.
Kalmajan, I think that'll be Sikar. That'll be Roman Sikar, perhaps. Let's get a little bit closer.
Already gone. No, it is.
It is. It's Kalmajan.
That's Leonard Kamna, the next man in the row.
This is Andre Amador, followed by Marc Soler. Movistar making a real mark on this race. Dylan van Baarle is still in that group. This is Fabio Aru at the back of the peloton. Number 136, that is Volker Mollema. Aru is starting to get back towards what we expect from the Italian. Romain Bardet, though, is not. This is moral support for Romain Bardet from Michael Chirel and Tony Galopin. This has nothing with trying to save his hopes in this year's Tour de France. This is about supporting the person, not the athlete.
Yeah, supporting the person, but this could leave these riders with a long and lonely ride for themselves if Bardet decides this is it and steps off. But it would not surprise me.
Michael Chirel and Tony Galopin. Number 32 is Bardet's roommate throughout the tour. They are very close personal friends. Tony Galopin is one of the statesmen of the team. They're in no fear of being eliminated, even if Bardet does stop. Rui Costa is the rider who's with them in the white colours from UAE. Nibali in red. Gisbert now going forward. One of the big results for Ali Gisbert's career was a solo, and that was in the Tour Avenir. So he's a guy who can climb, and he is proving it today. 22-year-old Leonard Kamna in the red colours fighting to stick with the more experienced Ilnaz Zakarin.
Well, Zakarin's come across a big gap. You saw the acceleration from the rest of the group, and you've got to wonder why it didn't go with him in the first place. He's making inroads. Wellens in polka dots. Vincenzo Nibali in the red and blue of Bahrain. Gilbert up there as well. Zakarin coming across. Leonard Kamna going in the wrong direction.
He's climbing well. It looks awkward, but it is very effective.
He's getting close, but he's not carrying the momentum he had. And Nibali, he ups the tempo again. He doesn't want a good climber like Zakarin with him, so go a bit quicker, make it harder for him. Happy with a group like take care of these two on the Tourmalet. And it's only a minute and a half to the peloton. You've got to race with everything you've got all the way through.
And based on the interview that we heard earlier on with Tim Wellens, he's part finish line. racing for those 10 points in the King of the Mounts classification. So he's all in to the midway point on the stage. Vincenzo Nibali is thinking about the finish line at the Tourmalet. And Alejandro Valverde was still in the yellow jersey group.
A lot of Spanish fans on the road, a lot of the Basque fans. You just saw one of the Basque flags off to the right-hand side. Opa, Mikel, they're out supporting their riders, the Basque, and they're just fantastic.
Volker Mollema now is being dropped, so Richie Port for Trek Segafredo looks as if in that group with the yellow jersey, Port is on his own. Nibali sprinting to the top of this climb. Stage victories and maybe even the King of the Mountains jersey. He's got the current leader of that classification with him. Wellens up alongside the Shark of Messina. A little look across to each other.
Vincenzo Nibali spoke pre-tour, before he knew Chris Froome wouldn't start, about coming to the Tour, going for stages, and maybe for the polka dot jersey. It's Nibali. Wellens has got him pinned up against the crowd. The Belgian will be too quick.
The sprint on for the points. Tim Wellens, he just nudged Vincenzo Nibali smartly into the crowd. The gate was... Wellens reeled it into the boats. He hits the brakes over the top.
Vincenzo's intentions are clear. He'd love a stage win, but he's starting to think a little bit longer term than that as well. 28 seconds behind.
And I'm not backing Ilnur Zakarin to catch Vincenzo Nibali on the descents.
Not only that, he'll be losing a lot of time.
I'm certain Nibali has gone back to plan A and chasing a spot on the podium in Paris with the polka dot jersey. Soignier at the top, fresh bidon for Ilnur Zakarin. And it's Andre Amador who is on the front for Movistar. And the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe is right behind Mikael Landa.
You want to put me under pressure, huh? I'll just come and ride on the back of your team. You're riding for me. I'm happy here.
Movistar with 5 riders in that group and 1 still to catch on the road. Carlos Ferraro. So too number 3, which is Jonathan Castroviejo. This is Andre Amador, the world champion, his teammate. Valverde.
This takes me back to last year's Tour de France. We saw some really aggressive riding by the Movistar team. Very tactical as well, sending riders up the road, attacking board, a teammate to make some pace in between climbs. In the end, it blew up in their face and they were dropped. But this is a real show of force.
Richie Port is there, Thibaut Pinot, Bennett, Kruiswijk, Rigoberto Urán there in the pink colours. Teammate with him. You would assume that it is Michael Woods, although Michael Woods has had a few crashes. Tanel Kange, the Estonian from that team, is also a world-class climber.
Movistar with Andre Amador on the front, they'll be looking to not only have put pressure on the climb, they'll be putting pressure on the descent. Amador is a very good descender. They'll be dragging them down there very quickly indeed. Adam Yates still not onto the back of this group. It does look to be, you can just go on the climb of the Col de Soleure.
It's definitely lights out for Romain Bardet. For the Mitchelton Scott team, they've been able to pick up a couple of stage victories already. Soon we'll be hearing from Nicolas Portal, the sports director for Ineos. I think this is Gisbert, and this is Wellens in front of him. And in the distance, you can't see him. It'll be Nibali, and it is one of the best descenders in the world.
It is pressure on. Vincenzo Nibali also realises with just a minute and a half back to the... This is a place he can take advantage of some cautious riding back there to open up the gap and really have a crack at the stage win.
If you'd like watching fast descending, I suggest you get online and you have a look at Vincenzo Nibali descending off the Poggio last year to win Milan-San Remo ahead of the sprinters. That was one of the best descents you're ever likely to watch. Nibali put on a masterclass, and he is the professor of descending this afternoon. Straightens up and Wellens is able to get back to him, but as soon as they're in the corners, Nibali opens the gap again. The fromage of the Pyrenees. We've seen plenty of cows to help with the production of that cheese.
And here's the reinforcements for Movistar.
This is Carlos Verona. He will stay on the front and drive it through the Valley Road. They're really putting this race under pressure. Wellens, Nibali, Gisbert.
That Quintana has his heart set on a big performance, and not just an emotional, it's got to be this day because of the date. Nairo Quintana will be feeling really good. He will be having great confidence in his own ability. We saw him do it last year when the roads got above 2,000 metres altitude. He would not have his team ride like this if he wasn't feeling in the right.
Last year, that win, high altitude finish above 2,000 metres, shortest road stage of the race. Today, shortest road stage of the race, high altitude finish above 2,000 metres. All the ingredients are there for Nairo Quintana. And I'm of the view his form this year is better than it was last year.
And it seems to suit him really well. A short stage that's intense from start to finish. No let up, no tempo riding on the climbs. Keep everybody at the limit for as long as possible. And then when he gets to those higher altitudes is where we have often seen the Colombians come into their own. So maybe another man that's liking this is Rigoberto Urán.
Him relaxed at the back. Classic Rigoberto Urán. Rockstar style, comes in late. He's got everything just at his feet. He'll never panic, Rigoberto Urán. He was very good in the time trial yesterday. I think Rigoberto Urán can win today's stage.
I think he can. I'm leaning towards Quintana.
I'm leaning to Urán.
One of the other Colombians would expect it so to France yesterday, that was Egan Bernal.
And today, surely he has to work for Geraint Thomas.
You would think so. Egan Bernal, he said himself yesterday after the time trial, it was a bad day to have a bad day. Who knows if he's already back? But I think you're right. The hierarchy in that team now has got to be first for Thomas. If Bernal doesn't have to work, see what he can also do to stay up there.
Green jersey Robbie in the mountains. Peter Sagan hasn't yet been caught by yellow.
A bit of discomfort early on as we come past l'Église Saint-Félix in Ocun. But Peter Sagan got himself into the breakaway, helped his friend Vincenzo Nibali get away. Once the pace went on the Souleur, ease it back, roll over the top, relax on the descent, on for a free ride, and he'll come up to the top of the Tourmalet to collect another green jersey. Hearing through our race centre, Adam Yates is still 30 seconds behind this group. There's a little bit more descending to come. I'm not so sure they can close 30 seconds. Simon and Adam plus Jack Haig.
This is Vincenzo Nibali in the red colour. Leader of the King of the Mountains classification in third spot, Tim Wellens. He's extended his advantage today. Enzo Nibali wants the polka dot jersey. He's shown all the signs. He said that he was aiming for stages and the King of the Mountains jersey. It was only when those guys had their bad luck with the crashes that he started to talk about. But there's the gap for Adam Yates behind the peloton. Set to the course, the leading breakaway group of three, they're off in the distance. Yates could almost see the convoy of cars behind the peloton. I think he will be able to make contact again. He's going to spend a lot of energy in the process and a lot of energy of his brother Simon and his teammate Jack Haig.
Well, over the last 2 minutes, they haven't gotten any closer. They're still at 31 seconds, in fact. They were into 29. They are losing a little bit of time to this group. I'm not confident for them.
He's been a stage winner at the Tour of Limousine. He was fifth at the Mont Ventoux Challenge earlier on this year, and he's riding the Tour for the third time, and he's only 24. He's got a lot of experience for a 24-year-old. Gap for Yates, it's only a couple of hundred metres behind that main peloton. I do think he'll get there, but then they pay a really hefty price. But look at the gap for Romain Bardet. He's almost 3 kilometres behind the yellow jersey group. Here is a chat with Yates before the start of the stage. Oh, sorry, a little bit of confusion. Yates is at 10 seconds behind. Next, we're going to be hearing from Thibaut Pinot. So Yates is at 10 seconds behind. He will get there.
Well, if I New Yates, well, if it was, he was at 30 seconds like we were seeing, but that wasn't his group.
They've created the barrage, though, Robbie, to make him earn every metre. It's going to be difficult. I thought the convoy was going to be the launching pad to get him there. The UCI, the commissaires, have done the right thing by creating that barrage.
They have. Not in this race situation. You do not get a free ride back across when you're a contender and you've been dropped.
Let's now go back to the start of the race with Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman from Groupama FDJ. As Jack Haig is closing it down, Yates will return. He makes a very good point, Thibaut Pinot. You can only make a plan that your legs can execute. Clearly, he's confident, though, with the amount of work we've seen his teammates doing from Groupama FDJ. This is the second group on the road. The red colours at the back of that group. That was Ilnaz Zakarin. These are the riders they're chasing. And again, into a technical part of the descent. And the gap that has been opened up by Vincenzo Nibali. As soon as it gets technical, Vincenzo puts distance into his breakaway companions. "57 seconds the gap for the chasers. Zakarin has been caught by Luis Leon Sanchez and others."
The problem for Vincenzo Nibali, gapping these two who have been working smoothly with him, puts himself on his own, and he's got an 18-kilometre section through the sprint, through the feed zone, and to the foot of the Tourmalet. You'd be much better off with 3. So he's only a few seconds in front. He'll probably ease up and wait. It'll be the best thing to do in terms of going for the stage win.
He's already around the next corner as Wellens and Gisbert are still exiting the previous one.
So they'll come back together. I think it's Vincenzo Nibali just making sure they push on as fast as possible, give them something to chase. Also gives them a marker on the descent. Follow my line. He's 3-4 seconds in front. They see his entry point, a little bit of braking. They can judge it much better too. Makes them better descenders.
And the complete opposite to that, in the group at 28 seconds, Ilnaz Zakarin went over the top of the climb ahead of Sanchez, Sikar, Kamna and Kalmajan. He's now been caught by those 4 riders. Position in that group, and every single corner they go through, this is the peloton containing the yellow jersey of Julian Alaphilippe as it swells again. Number 3, Jonathan Castro-Viejo returns.
Yep, so Yates is back there. Guy coming into the race as a genuine contender, having before finished 4th overall, having won the white jersey for the best young rider in the Tour de France in the past, and then being dropped on the Category 1 climb when the real focus of the day is the big one at the end, the Tourmalet, the Or category climb to the finish. His morale has taken a beating.
It has, a real beating. He needs a fresh start, Romain Bardet. He looks like he needs a holiday. Not just physically, but psychologically, perhaps more so than even physically.
Group that formed on the Salur is going to come back together before we get to the foot of the Tourmalet.
And I fear Nibali today is hurting his chances for a future stage victory. 48 seconds in front of the yellow jersey group. Surely they'll be caught on the Col de Tourmalet. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. Nibali, though, he's a man with loads of experience. And he's a guy that traditionally in Grand Tours gets better into the 3rd week. Here are the chasers. They've cleared out all the vehicles. Not even the Mavic neutral service with the motorbike is between these two groups. It's only 11 seconds. And 48 seconds back to the peloton.
Well, everything closing in. And I think we're going to have a complete front peloton of sorts. A small one, but a complete group when we get to the foot of the Tourmalet. There's Andre Amador. And along with Carlos Verona, that will be their job done. Get to the foot of the Tourmalet, and it's going to be up to the likes of Marc Soler, Alejandro Valverde, Mikel Landa, and Nairo Quintana to see if they can complete the execution of the plan.
I'd like to know the mood inside the Ineos team car, whether they are feeling the pressure of Movistar. That's what Movistar is trying to achieve. They want to put the team of the defending champion under pressure.
They also want to put Alaphilippe under pressure. Yates back of the peloton looking for drinks, both Simon and Adam.
Almost at the intermediate sprint. Wellens in front. Gisbert in second position. Nibali in red. This will not impact on the leaderboard in the battle for the green jersey. Wellens won over the top of the second climb on today's stage, the Col de Solor, and he will win the intermediate sprint. Gisbert at 24 shown real maturity, not disrupting the rhythm. Nibali's not interested in this minor prize.
No, Tim Wellens, I doubt he believes in his chances to win the stage, even to take points on the Tourmalet. So just getting whatever he can out of the rest of this stage, the Belgian, and that's why that longer turn. So I'll do a much longer one if I can just roll through the sprint point as first. Still a few points left on the line for the chasing peloton. I'm sure we'll see Peter Sagan also do a turn through the intermediate sprint point and just add to his total and extend what is already a very large lead in the points competition.
And then once they get to the other side of town, it will then be into the feed zone. Peter Sagan now in the green jersey, making the most of the minor points that are on offer. No need to look over the shoulder, Peter. There is no one in that group that will challenge you today. Extends his lead further, on target for a 7th victory in the points classification. 3 riders from Mitchelton Scott at the back of the group.
This is the Abbatiale Notre-Dame de Somption and Saint-Savin.
And this one, Benedictine monastery that was founded in around about the 9th century on the ruins of an old Roman palace. In 945, the Counts of Bigorre richly endowed the abbey by purchasing the land and giving them the opportunity with the Benedictine order to build the abbey in this position. It was declared part of the national estate during the French Revolution, and throughout the 1990s, they did a lot of refurbishment, and it now houses a museum of religious art.
This is a Pic Midi d'Ossau, here high in the Pyrenees. And this, the Pic du Midi de Bigorre. The observatory we saw earlier on in the broadcast, right at the start, and that's even overlooking the Tourmalet, well above, around 3,000 metres, just a touch under. Just 2,850 something.
Correct. That's roughly what it stands. And it was good to see earlier on as well. There was somebody there dressed up as an astronaut today, marking the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. This is the leading group. Calmejean at the back in the blue colours of Total Direct Energy. He's found his form. He, by his own admission, was really struggling in the first week. He's now been in a couple of important breakaways. Wellens with the King of the Mountains jersey. Nibali collecting the musette bag from the side of the road. If you have just joined us, let's now take a look back at the stage so far and show you what you might have missed out on. This is the Bardet group with pretty much all of his teammates around him. 7 riders from AG2R Le Mondial in this group. The only one missing, Alexis Villimos, I didn't spot there. That's a sad sight to look at the size of this group with non-climbers in here and lots of them.
Missing a lot of sprinters. This is Romain Sicard at the front of the race for Total Direct Energy, trying to get himself onto the foot of the Tourmalet first as they ride up the valley road. Vincenzo Nibali, he just continues to tap out the rhythm. So don't worry about attacking up the road. Let's try and work together, see if we can possibly open this gap. If the peloton take their foot off the gas through the feed zone, we might be able to take a few more seconds.
And for Romain Sicard of Total Direct Energy, this is as close as he'll get to his home region. He's from the Basque country on the French side of the border.
Well, looking to impress the family and the fans and not taking their foot off the gas whatsoever is Team Movistar.
Peter Sagan in the break, mopping up the points from that main peloton at the intermediate sprint. There's Sicard in the distance, opening up a small advantage.
The rest of the group seem to be letting Vincenzo Nibali, or putting the pressure on Vincenzo Nibali to do the bulk of the work in the pacemaking on the front of this group. And that time gap is coming down 39 seconds, 40. It's going up a little bit for Sicard, but that main part of that breakaway group are drifting back towards the peloton.
10 years ago, he was the big hope of French cycling. He won the Tour l'Avenir for the future stars of the Tour de France. The same year, in a really hilly course in Mendrisio, the World Championships in Switzerland, he won the under-23 road race solo. Intermediate sprint, Wellens collecting the 20 points for Peter Sagan in 9th position, 7 more points in the race for Green. Here he is, Roman Sicard, our sole leader at 31 seconds ahead of the yellow jersey group.
And it's a technical descent, so you've got to think of those numbers in terms of a really winding technical descent where you don't get a long straight section to build up really high speeds for a long period. 3.2 kilometres to the climb of today's stage. It is an all category climb, and at the top, as well as the stage win, there's also the Souvenir Jacques Godet, the prize, going to the winner on top of the Tourmalet. The highest point here in the Pyrenees they'll race. It's the highest paved road in the French Pyrenees.
Not too far away from the Spanish border, super motivated today, and their Colombian star, Nairo Quintana, is priority number 1. Fear, in a similar way to Simon Clarke when he was in the breakaway, that once they hit the bottom of the climb, the tank will be empty. And for Roman Sicard, this with the most combative prize, he has not won a race in the pro peloton. 10 years since his last victory, that was the under-23 World Championships in Mendrisio 2009. Is break it down into bite-sized pieces. Now he breaks it down into this 20-kilometre climb.
This is really good for Sicard. Tailwind up the valley. And him pushing the lead out to nearly a minute and a half now.
Mikel Landa now on the radio. He's had a tough tour, one disrupted by bad luck.
But you never know what you're going to get with Mikel Landa. You said priority number 1 for Movistar is Nairo Quintana. I'm wondering if that's just what they're telling Mikel Landa now as a reminder. Yeah, but the enigmatic Spaniard so often does whatever he wants.
And he's reported to be going to Bahrain Merida next year. Quintana reported to be going to RKS Samsung. And Movistar are on the hunt for Enric Mas, who wears the white jersey today at the Koenig Quick-Step.
His interview this morning, he said, we're going to give everything for Julien. We are starting to believe he can get to Paris in yellow.
Underneath the 20-kilometre marker, the climb of the Tourmalet is about to start. He just nags away uphill. This is a gradient of around about 2% or so, maybe even a little bit more than that for Rome. As the real climb for the Frenchman is about to start. Here come the chasers. Gisbert at the front, followed then by Calmejean. When you're not here throughout the Tour de France, it really is a very peaceful, calming region. This is the Chateau Sainte-Marie, which we're now getting a chance to look at. This was built by the Count of Bigorre back in the 10th century. It housed also the Hospital of St. John, later the Knights of Malta, then the English garrison during the 100 Years' War. There are the numbers, 19 kilometres.
These are the first chasers. Elie Gilbert, the man in white and black, and Lilian Calmejean.
Still Movistar at the front. Astana coming around the outside, making sure that they position Jakob Fuglsang. Richie Porte is in there with one teammate. He's got Volker Mollema for support.
And Richie Porte, he has promised that he is going to for when the big mountains start. That is today. He said he's feeling fresh, he's feeling good, he's feeling confident, despite losing a lot of time. He's ready to go.
He has always spoken about week 3, and the Alps are still to come. Col du Tourmalet. Carlos Verona, one last time to the well.
Peter Sagan and the men around him, they've decided that is enough. We're going to get to the finish okay. With him, Ilnur Zakarin, the man who was in the breakaway. Also, Vincenzo Nibali, Tis Benoit, he will play no further role.
And Kamna, who was in that earlier breakaway. So once they realise they're caught, save the energy and look for the next opportunity to try and win a stage. That's Ali Gisbert at the front for Arkea Samsic. It's still Movistar. Ineos, still with plenty of riders in that group. They've still got 4 there. It looks like Jonathan Castroviejo has returned, and Mikhail Kwiatkowski. 3 riders in there for Jumbo-Visma, supporting Steven Kruijswijk, George Bennett and Lawrence de Plus.
This is now Gilbert going away from Lilian Kalmajan and going in search of Roman Sicard.
Kalmajan had been sitting behind him the whole time. Shows the strength of Gisbert.
At least for Elias Gilbert, he had that tailwind up the valley, so it didn't make a lot of difference to him, and he's chasing that one man in front. Now he goes in search of Sicard. The peloton, they are around 45 seconds behind him.
The 24-year-old riding the Tour for the front of him. Or have they? No, they haven't. Not just yet. They should be, because this is the man he is chasing. This is Roman Sicard. One last bidon practice. The steady nature of this climb, it does suit Geraint Thomas and Dylan van Baarle.
I agree with you completely. It suits Thomas. It does get steeper at the top, but remember what he did on La Planche de Belfi when the gradients were up to 24%. Really interrupted. The altitude training camp snowed out. The crash in the Tour de Suisse today will give us a much better indication than yesterday did in the time trial. Sheltered, Julian Alaphilippe.
Also in that group, Jakob Fuglsang was there for the Astana team. He's got quite a few teammates around him. The white colours of UAE Emirates. Dan Martin is in the group. Rigoberto Urán is there. He has Bauke Mollema as Ali Gilbert is getting across to Roman Sicard. And he is at his limit. Off from the front of the peloton for the Movistar team. It's now Andre Amador who is setting the pace. Roman Sicard. Does Gilbert force the pressure or have a little bit of a rest? It's a little bit of a rest. He'll have a drink and then he needs to maintain this rhythm. Somehow. Easier said than done.
Because it's not quick enough, he needs to go straight past him, which he does.
Straight away. He's showing real maturity for a 24-year-old.
And looking straight away, it wasn't a look as if, say, are you coming with me? Am I dropping you already?
And he is. That is the answer. Not happy with the tempo. This has been impressive.
So Elias Gilbert, he's offloaded Kalmajan out of his wheel. He's ridden across to his teammate Sicard, and he's also got rid of him. And it's the young Frenchman from Arkea Samsic who now pushes on the lower slopes of the Tourmalet.
It's nice to be having this conversation about him as opposed to Gianni Moscon. Let's put that behind us as Ali Gilbert is applying the pressure at the front, hunting for a stage victory.
More riders out the back now. Lutsenko and Luis Leon Sanchez from Astana going out the back of the bunch. Their job is done for today. They've supported Jakob Fuglsang. This is Kalmajan. He's been swallowed up and spat out.
Back of the peloton, Mitchelton Scott out of the saddle. That looked like one of the Yates brothers.
It looked more like Adam's style than Simon's, but we didn't get a read of the number. And, yeah, of course, being identical twins, it is somewhat difficult.
And Alejandro Valverde, Nairo Quintana. In that group, Mikel Landa. So well represented at the front, the Movistar team. 10% gradient.
This is Gilbert, the young French peloton. He's matching Andre Amador, pedal stroke for pedal stroke, but there's still more to come from Movistar. Marc Soler lining up behind, ready to do a turn of pace.
Behind Alaphilippe is his teammate in white, and that is the best young rider, Enric Mas, the facial expression of Egan Bernal.
Baring the teeth. Dan Martin gone once and returned. Now it's gone twice. I don't see him coming back again. In Sweat to a very, very warm day out there as well. The Spaniards, they'll be loving it. Maybe the Welshmen less so.
Yellow everywhere. But it's a man in white for Arkea Samsic. The smallest or the second smallest budget in the race, Arkea Samsic, behind Wanty Group Goubert. And their 24-year-old French climber, Ali Gilbert, is the man who was leading the charge up one of the most famous climbs in the history of the Tour. The 83rd time onto the Col de Tourmalet, first scaled in 1910 in this race. Still Movistar, still Amador. It's Bauke Mollema somehow has made his way to the front of that group. He's been yo-yoing on and off the back. He's towed Richie Porte around. He's been there to support him. Volker Mollema is doing an outstanding job.
Well, Porte back towards the back of the group again. So Mollema, he brought Porte up towards the front, right up to the wheel of Julien Alaphilippe, since dropped further back.
This is Mollema with the yellow helmet on and the white and red colours. Trek Segafredo leading the team's classification. EF in the pink colours, Education First. They have Rigoberto Urán and Tanel Kangout in that group.
Really a game effort by Elie Gebert, riding against the same man over the last 10 or 12 kilometres now. Andre Amador, only 11 kilometres to go. There's been a super effort by the Costa Rican on the front of the peloton, still with Soler, Valverde, Landa and Quintana to come.
Riding to instruction at the front, Andre Amador. Access to the Pic de Midi, the observation tower that we saw some footages of a little earlier. Number 91, Rigoberto Urán, hard to read the body language, often sits towards the back, rode well on the time trial yesterday.
That some riders prefer to just drift through the group, not hold one position, but go with how the legs feel. Castroviejo, he's dropped. He'll switch things off and just roll his way up to the top.
No benefit in Castroviejo trying to limit the damage. He needs to actually save the energy for the next day, as you alluded to moments ago.
At Team Ineos, they don't think about it as the individual's energy reserve. It's the team's energy reserve, and you're a part of that machine. It's done for Amador. Huge job by number 63, the Costa Rican.
That was impressive. That is what a domestic does when they empty the tank. He has come to a grinding halt. Bilbao now number 72 for Astana. He is really suffering.
Well, now Marc Soler will have gone to the front of the group for Movistar. Richie Porte starts to move up because it's becoming more urgent, more important to sit forward. Riders are now starting to be offloaded. Volker Mollema going back as well. Nairo Quintana now a long way in the back of the group.
And a long way forward in the saddle, which is always a sign of suffering. Number 12 is Emmanuel Buchmann. He's in 6th place overall. 91 is Rigoberto Urán. The French champion who says he wants to be a car salesman, Warren Barguil, is at the front. Don't worry about selling cars. Worry about winning bike races. You're one of the best in the world. The peace and quiet, the tranquility at the top. Ali Gisbert about to be caught, but this is deserving of the red number for the most combative. He should get a spot on the podium.
It's been a great ride by Gilbert. Richie Porte again, another acceleration. So just hopping around riders who are starting to be distanced.
This is Roman Kreuziger, the best placed overall for Dimension Data. Started the day in 19th. He fights on. He will fight all the way to the finish to limit the damage.
Aru now also being dropped. No surprise, it's the start of a big comeback.
Quintana is being dropped. Movistar doing all the work at the front, and Nairo Quintana is being dropped.
Well, this is now a huge surprise.
Now it's all for Mikel Landa. Number 8, that is Dylan van Baarle. It's been extraordinary for the Dutchman to survive this long. He's a specialist for the classics such as the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix.
Well, after Quintana, the next is Alejandro Valverde, but he is the man at the front of the group.
It's for Landa. This is for Mikel Landa, who is 3rd in line for Movistar. It's Soler, Valverde, the world champion, then Mikel Landa.
So maybe those injuries for Quintana are much worse than we thought. He said, don't make a big deal of it. It'll only make the people at home worry. Well, they are obviously affecting him because he's going out the back and his team is continuing to drive it at the front.
And there he is. Nairo Quintana is all on his own. And the composure of the yellow jersey, Julien Alaphilippe looks as comfortable as anybody in that leading group.
You can hide for a little while in the Tour de France. You can bluff it for a bit. When you get in the high mountains like this, eventually the truth comes out. And I think now we're discovering the extent of the injury to Nairo Quintana from that crash a couple of days ago.
He looked so good in the first week. He looked good on stage 6 de La Planche de Belleville. Twice second, once third. The podium will...
but hurting on the inside narrow Quintana.
The telltale sign is how far forward he was in the saddle when we looked at him at the back of the group. And over the shoulder, this is Marc Soler
trying to salvage it for Quintana, sending Soler back. In the meanwhile, it was Valverde on the front.
Soler.
Do they now stop riding at the front? Soler's gone back for Quintana. He's got him. Aru is there behind him. Dylan Van Baal is the man in front of Marc Soler. That's the gap to the main group. And now as Ineos have taken over the pacemaking. So Movistar, so aggressive, been on the front for most of the stage.
Barguil now attacks the French national champion. Says he wants to be a car salesman. Well, see if he can buy a pair of these wheels. Can they track him down? 6 minutes, 39 seconds
problem
behind.
For Barguil. He stopped pedalling. Chain problem. Mechanical. He's got it back on.
Perhaps he was going to the big chain ring.
Whatever he was doing, he flipped the chain off.
But he stayed calm. Richie Porte and Volker Mollema at the back of this group for Trek Segafredo.
Now it's Walt Pouls.
Lawrence de Plus is here for Jumbo-Visma. And in second position for Jumbo-Visma is George Bennett.
A lot of talking within Team Ineos. Here's the attack back of the group. So he starts his attack from 30 metres behind the lead of the group.
He's found his rhythm now, Warren Barguil. Arkea Samsung.
They are riding a great stage.
Do they really need to hire Nairo Quintana? That's the rumour that Quintana is going across next year. This group has really slowed down as Dylan Van Baal has recaught them.
That was the talking we saw from Ineos. We saw Egan Bernal on the radio. Thomas behind him looking like he was suffering. The pace was being set by Walt Pouls. Now they've eased off. Van Baal comes back to the front. In control at the moment with just Barguil off the front.
Warren Barguil. He gets the support even by the Basque spectators. He starts the day 6:39 down in the overall classification. But at what point does Geraint Thomas and Team Ineos start to worry about the yellow jersey, about Julian Alaphilippe, who leads by 1 minute and 26 seconds? And Walt Pouls perhaps is asking exactly the same question of Geraint Thomas. They're in deep conversation. Number 71, Jakob Fuglsang. He said yesterday for the first time, stepping onto the team bus, he didn't feel his knee from the crash on stage one.
Time performer Barguil, and with 8 kilometres to go, a 12-second gap. None of the big favourites have made a move as yet, so I'm not going to call him as a possible stage winner at this moment, but a great ride by Arkea Samsic. We've seen Gilbert, we've seen riders in the break, and now their team leader off the front at the hottest point of the race so far.
Can we go possible with a hesitation? Because he is making the race, and that is the destination. The mythical Col de Tourmalet.
That is the top of the climb, and look at the fans on the hillside. They are up here in their thousands lining the roads.
What a
here
stadium.
in the Pyrenees.
And it's been closed for a long time. Look at how far down those camper vans are. You're making your way up on foot. The man affectionately known as Wawa is wowing the French public. 15 seconds. I'm hearing you about the fact that the big favourites, they haven't accelerated yet. There's still 7.7 kilometres to go. But this is the best he's looked in 2 years by a long shot.
Oh, most definitely. That's an easy one to pick. It's the best he's been in a long time. Team Ineos taking responsibility. And are they lulling the rest of the favourites into a false sense of security? Maybe they're just trying to go a little bit slower at a pace that suits a Thomas that's possibly suffering. He wants to win on the Tourmalet. He's talked the talk, and Pinot goes to the front. It's David Gaudu away from Ineos. We see it often, the acceleration. It's not followed by the British team, and they try to wind it back in. But with a man in form like Thibaut Pinot, can they do it? It's panic stations a little bit behind. Jakob Fuglsang reacts.
So too does Mikel Landa from Movistar.
And Alejandro Valverde, he follows the wheel. The riders from Jumbo-Visma, Steven Kruijswijk, and not a move yet by Ineos. They are sensing a weakness.
At the back, 25, the white jersey. That is Enric Mas. 136 with the yellow number on. That is Volker Mollema. Well, Poles is still in this group. De Plus, Kruijswijk and Bennett for Jumbo-Visma. Kruijswijk is looking really dangerous for yellow. Richie Porte is still in that group. He slots himself in behind the white jersey of Enric Mas. But the gap is starting to open for Mas behind the yellow of Alaphilippe Gaudu. The 22-year-old of French cycling setting the tempo. This is Kangert now being dropped in pink.
Volker Mollema struggling at the back. Richie Porte looking over his shoulder, seeing how much room he's got to drift when the pace comes on. Barguil still punching it out, 18 seconds in front.
Hasn't lost any real time, though. It's been an acceleration, but not any significant time lost for Warren Barguil. This is Mollema, the Dutchman, third in the 2011 Vuelta Espana.
In front of him, last man on the group now is Richie Porte. Mollema struggles his way back into the wheels.
He's a picture of suffering, Volker Mollema, and he knows how to go deep. This is good, though, followed by Pinot. It's then Fuglsang, Movistar with Landa. For the first time this morning, we heard Thibaut Pinot talking up the fight.
Looking at the faces, the two that look the most comfortable in the group were the Frenchmen on the front, Gaudu and Pinot.
Volker Mollema still fighting, still clawing his way back. One pedal stroke at a time. Richie Porte is at the rear of the group.
Barguil takes another second on the chasers.
3 riders remaining. Number 1, you can see the hips from number 1, Geraint Thomas. They were starting to rock and roll.
Usually so solid in the seat, Geraint Thomas. Now a bit of movement, rocking and rolling. Quintana, he's being further distanced. He is now 36 seconds behind the group of the Maillot Jaune.
They're those little signs, sitting forward in the saddle. The hips rocking and rolling forward a bit more. A bigger gear than normal as opposed to the souplesse of a high pedaling cadence. Geraint Thomas looks to be under a little pressure.
Warren Barguil holding more or less steady, 17 seconds. And we've spoken so much about it, about the defending champion of the Tour, Geraint Thomas. He may get found out the lack of preparation, and it was going to take a long time in this Tour to get to that point. This is the first proper big mountain.
Here are the gaps on the road. The far right, Yates a long way behind. Then it's Quintana. He's at 300 metres behind the yellow jersey group. And then out in front on his own to the tune of 15 seconds is Warren Barguil. Fernando Quintana, he's 29 years of age, but it feels like his best is behind him. He hasn't been anywhere near it for the last 2 years by comparison to our expectations of him. He's won the Giro, he's won the Vuelta.
And we just can't know the effect that crash on stage 11 has had on him, whether he had it in him coming into this Tour or not, and it's so hard to get a read on Nairo Quintana.
We'll never know the answer to that question, the size of the impact of that crash.
12 seconds now for Warren Barguil. David Gaudu, he is making inroads on the lead, down to 10 seconds. Thibaut Pinot, he's got his heart set on this one. He's ridden this climb so many times. You spoke about his fastest time up there, and we talk sometimes about Strava records. His best time is 10 seconds inside the Strava record. Barguil, he sees that he seemed to ease off.
He knows he's about to be caught, so he's riding smartly. He's saving something for the next attack. That's clever by Warren Barguil. This is not Barguil, full stick, trying to fend them off. The yellow jersey is still there, Julian Alaphilippe. He dares to dream, so too do the French. They want him to believe. And at number 1, Geraint Thomas is a long way back in that group.
Suffering or bluffing?
Give me 5.7 kilometres and I'll tell you the answer. That's the beauty of the Tour this year. It is wide open. Gaudu, he ups the tempo. They see the capture and they see the gap starting to open up behind. The young Frenchman is applying pressure.
Barguil, he's slotted back in fifth wheel, just ahead of the 3 riders from Jumbo-Visma. There goes one overboard for Ineos. That's
and Richie Porte is also overboard. He was good yesterday against the clock. Porte is now really suffering. 15th overall at 4:44. He might still improve his position overall today, but this is difficult. Enric Mas is the next.
Enric Mas, he was the GC hope for De Koning Quickstep coming into the Tour de France, but it's Julian Alaphilippe in the yellow jersey who is still holding strong in the group just ahead of him. Oh, the teeth starting to come out from Thibaut Pinot. Jakob Fuglsang, he is cruising near the front and looking good. Julian Alaphilippe out of the saddle, dancing on those pedals like he always does. I'm tipping him to hold yellow.
He's starting to become a big contender. Wout Poels is at the back of the group. He latches on with the world champion, Alejandro Valverde. Egan Bernal and Geraint Thomas still in this group for Ineos.
Alaphilippe tracking Team Ineos. He almost hasn't left the wheel of Geraint Thomas. Valverde now at the back of the group. This is Poels. His job is done.
Not much left for him to do. Wout Poels is now being distanced. I don't think he'll come back a second time.
He's gone for...
He took a long-range attack to Alpe d'Huez. We're seeing the suffering now of Julian Alaphilippe. He is digging deeper into the barrel. There can't be much left in the tank, can there, with all the race? And they've raced for more than 2,000 kilometres already.
But you know, it's hard to tell with Julian Alaphilippe if it's suffering or selling the show. Buy a ticket and get on board with Julian Alaphilippe. It's always spectacular. And look at how small the group is, and he's still there. Never been in this position before in a Grand Tour.
Whichever it is, I'm buying 2 tickets and I'm bringing in a guest front seat to watch Julian Alaphilippe.
Thomas makes a move up the inside, improving his position.